welcome back to Click Video Magazine on this Embargo Day. We love Embargo Day episodes. I know, again, yeah, there's been quite a few of them. And I'm glad that we're both wearing the sort of relevant shirts. 30th anniversary of EOS. We've got a brand new EOS today. And the last logo we have here, 120 million lenses, a whole bunch of lenses announcing today.
And we got that right without even phoning each other.
I know,
it's
brilliant.
Believe it.
Brilliant.
Right.
So, first and foremost, brand new EOS. We've already had a mirrorless this year. We've had three SLRs and we've had a cinema camera.
Yes.
So now a new EOS M.
A new EOS M. The EOS range is growing absolutely, and it's where a lot of focus is being placed to get this kind of range, the smaller, more compact body, but still with DSLR quality, into the range. Overseas, the guys are buying mirrorless. The market share in DSLR is shrinking so quickly that you can understand where Canon is going with this.
So DSLR as a whole is shrinking, but mirrorless is growing.
Is growing.
So that the overall interchangeable lens market is
growing.
It's on the strength of that.
Growing. If you look at, for instance, a country like Japan, 45% of DSLR sales is in a mirrorless body.
Okay.
Now, that's tiny, dude.
Well, that's quite intense.
Maybe not so much here. Yeah, we're a bit smaller, but let's talk about this baby. M100.
Okay.
Fits in the bottom end of the range, so it fits below M6, M5.
What does it replace?
M10, M3 is now falling away towards the end of the year.
Okay.
M10, this is basically a replacement for M10. You'll see no hot shoe on top of the camera.
Okay.
So it's a basic replacement, but the specs in this little baby is absolutely phenomenal.
So model number M100.
M100.
Okay.
Spec-wise.
Okay.
24 million pixels.
Good.
Dual pixel autofocus. ISO maximum 25.6.
That's very good.
That's humongous.
And it's still an APS-C size sensor,
It's still a 1.6 crop. It's also got in-camera RAW processing. It's got creative filters in the camera. It's got Bluetooth, NFC, Wi-Fi, everything that you want.
So, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because this has to. Why would I buy an M5? What has the M5 got that this hasn't?
M5 has got a viewfinder on the top, so it's got a built-in electronic viewfinder.
Okay, that's a biggie.
Big selling point. The nice thing about this is it's once again
the vloggers
that love these cameras. This is aimed at the guys that now realize, I love my cell phone, I love what I do, but I need to take a little step further. Something on mirrorless that I've got to mention is we're planning a little bit of an event with mirrorless.
Okay.
So have a look at social media. I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but it's going to be sort of a cooking vibe type of thing, which is going to be very cool.
It's going to be on our Facebook page.
Yeah, it's going to be on Facebook. Okay.
The first of a couple of lenses announced this morning. We're going to talk about the other three a little bit later with another guest. We're going to kick you the hell out shortly. But first and foremost, a brand new 85mm lens. As you can see, an L series. We've had the 85 1.8 in the market for good 18, 19 years.
Sure.
The 85 1.2 Mark 1 became Mark 2 around about 13, 14 years ago. And the 1.2 is beautiful. Make no mistake, it's absolutely astonishing. But it's
an amazing piece of
glass. It's an enormous piece of glass.
That's huge.
That focus range is just an absolute nightmare. It was never really good for video because it couldn't focus quick enough.
No, it wasn't quick enough.
The 85 1.8 really good, but didn't quite have the optical sharpness, the level of detail.
Like the 85 1.2.
And this comes in sort of slap bang between the two lenses to add on to the range, number one, but number two, to have a whole bunch of new odds and ends. First and foremost, 85mm f1.4. So we have an f-stop halfway between the two. L series, so you're getting the pro quality you want. The faster autofocus with the internal ultrasonic motor. So the negatives of the 1.2 in terms of focus for video, this is absolutely astonishingly quick for that. And then image stabilizer, which again for the video guys is going to prove to be quite interesting. It ticks all the boxes for a lot of people. Availability on this is going to be November. So we're going to take a quick snap break here, go for a cut. I'm going to kick Ari out and have a special guest, and we'll talk about tilt and shifts in a few seconds. Hi, welcome back to Click Video Mag. As we mentioned before, we're going to have a special guest in the studio. That will be Quintin Mills. Thanks for joining us to talk about the other three lenses we announced this morning. So quite an interesting day for us, not only a new EOS, but also a new 85mm lens. But these ones, most interesting about them, they've all got a handful of
tilty, shifty thing.
So as you well imagine, or as you probably know, we've had a range of tilt and shift lenses over the last couple of years. The 17 and the 24 were modified and changed about 2-3 years back, but the 45 and the 90 have been on the market for a hell of a long time. And what we essentially found is that there's a lot of people who want tilt and shift. There's a whole new angle to it. We're going to talk about it in a minute, but the traditional use of tilt and shift lenses is almost exclusively for architecture. on the wide angle side. On the sort of mid-range focal length areas, it's predominantly used for food or product shots, and on the long end, it's for portraiture. So the new lenses we've got a new 50mm to replace the 45mm, a new 90 to replace the existing 90, and a brand new monster, the 135. So the reason why Quintin's here is we've given you these to play with for the last couple of weeks. Well, last couple of days, literally.
Wish I'd had weeks.
Yeah, fair enough. First impression. Now Quintin, you shoot a hell of a lot of portraits, people. You shoot also a hell of a lot of food. Do you do sort of much product shots or pack shots, that kind of story?
I do from time to time. I was fortunately, I had a client in that did have some pack shots that they needed to shoot.
Right.
And it was the first time that I'd used this particular tilt and shift on that type of product.
Okay.
And when you kind of got the pressure of the client and
a new lens that you've never tried before,
and eventually I just kind of went to using it without the tilt or the shift and just shot it straight, and that in itself impressed the hell out of me.
Okay. You using tilt and shift, as I said, traditionally is the architecture kind of story, with the idea of, first and foremost, it's about shift. So if I'm sitting looking up at a building, to the building sort of lean in at the top.
Yeah.
So you would use shift to try and get a higher angle. Also the wide angle, a lot of people are shooting sort of interiors. If you're in a room, for example, you're going to take a photograph of the whole room. To make it look bigger, often what you want to try and do is shoot with a mirror, and often you don't want the photographer in the mirror. And if you're really good at Photoshop, you can retouch yourself out. But
takes too much time.
With the shift capability, you can actually shift the lens to the side, and you can actually remove yourself essentially from the image in the mirror. Takes a bit of practice, I'm led to believe. We'll have a look, see at some of that when we talk about tech, these lenses a little bit later. Now the main thing for the longer focal lens, not only product stuff but food. I know you do a fair whack at food, and the clincher here is not so much the tilt, it's more about the shift. So if you're shooting at an angle, your depth of field is parallel to your film plane, and sometimes you want the depth of field sort of parallel with the plate and going up and down from there.
Absolutely.
Did you try this? Did you give that a whirl? What do you think?
I didn't have any food shoots, but I did go to one of the restaurants that I do some work for, and managed to bust my way in and do a couple of shots of some of their cocktails.
Okay.
And with the aim being to sort of normally you have a couple of bottles lined up on the counter. This one's in focus and the rest are kind of toast. So adjusting that focal plane so that you get all of them in focus, even at 2.8.
It's kind of radical, playing with where your depth of field actually falls. Well, I love it. And you've given us a couple of sample images. We've been playing some sample images in the background. Going to have a look at one or two more of the images going forward. But Quintin, thanks very much for playing with these, letting us know what you thought. We'll talk about them in more depth shortly. I'm going to talk about the technicalities behind them. Back with the Click Video Mag for our final tech segment about the tilt and shift lenses. I've kept Quintin here to talk about some practical examples, some hints and tips that he might have with regard to these things. The first thing we're going to talk about is shift. And shift is essentially, as I said to you earlier, traditionally used by architecture photographers. If I've got my camera on my lens on my camera pointing straight at the subject, you'll get vertical lines. Everything's groovy. The problem is, as soon as you start tilting upwards, and especially with regards to buildings, you get the lines starting to converge. Now, what shift essentially allows you to do is essentially that. So your camera pretty much stays the same position, but the lens has now moved to a higher plane, and the light is now angling slightly down. It doesn't eliminate the converging lines, but it brings them in to a little bit more straighter. If you're shooting a 50-story building from the ground, it's still going to converge regardless. But if you're shooting something that's 2 or 3 floors, relatively low, that sort of leaning in kind of thing can be eliminated pretty much straight up as far as that's concerned. Not only can you go up, you can obviously go down, but another thing that's quite unique to Canon, there's a little pin on the side over here which allows you to swivel on a 45-degree or a 90-degree angle, so you can now do the shift horizontally. So like I was mentioning before about shooting interiors, shooting into a mirror, you can essentially, by doing that, move yourself out of the shot. It's quite radical.
And even if your tripod is in a position that it can't go any more to the left or the right, it's quite a nice way to get an angle that you wouldn't have been able to get.
Interesting. Well, thank you for mentioning the word tripod. The word is the law as far as tilt and shift lens is concerned.
Definitely.
Use a tripod. If you're not on a tripod, hand holding, that kind of thing, and manual focus, I don't even want to think about it. And especially when you're starting to muck with
absolutely
tilt rather than shift. So tilt being the next big baby, and this is the one that's often confused a hell of a lot, and often quite difficult for a lot of people to get right. And essentially, what you're doing over there, and I'm going to loosen the knob over there. What you're doing is you're moving the front element, or the front set of elements, over. And what that essentially does, when you've got your depth of field in a traditional environment, you've got the focal plane on the camera, front element of the lens is parallel to that, therefore your depth of field is parallel to that. When you have, and even if you're shooting f2.8, it's this amount in front of and behind, f16 this amount in front of behind. When you start playing with tilt, you can then start moving where that depth of field falls in relation to the focal plane. So if I'm tilting off to the left, the further I tilt left, the more angled the depth of field is going to be. So even though I've got f16 depth of field, I can make it fall like that. And because the lens is still looking this way, the f16 depth of field is now at an oblique angle. And you can make f16 look like very shallow depth of field.
When you're on the wider options like the 17 and the 24,
right?
It's not quite as you move it slightly, and you're still within the ballpark.
Yeah.
When you do that on the 135, you do that and you're 15 meters past it. I mean, it's
so true.
so fun. And the only way that I found that I could focus accurately was with a live view, zoomed right in, and even on a tripod, as soon as you touch it, you can see that movement. So you try and you have to slow down. That's
a good tip. Yeah. Live view is an absolute bonus when it comes to things like this, and especially when you're doing a product shot where you want to know exactly where that depth of field is falling. They're not cheap, make no mistake. No. And we often find the only time people actually get to play with them is when they get them from rental houses, and we'll find these will more likely find their way into rental companies. What we've also seen, a strange move which we didn't expect, and it happened with our 17mm when we launched that a couple of years back. It went into the video industry, and people started shooting music videos in particular with the tilt and shift technology, because you could get these strange depth of field effects and these strange, when you used tilt and shift together, which all the guidebook says just don't. It's one or the other, because you start distorting angles and you start pushing people's faces all over the place. It is hellish fun, and it is hysterical to see it happen. They call it the impossible picture. It's always been known as the tilt and shift delivers the impossible pictures that you can't shoot f2.8 and have that much in focus. Well, yes you can. You can't shoot f16 and make the foreground and background blurred. Well, yes, you can. There's a lot to them, and I think word to the wise: number one, get a tripod.
Definitely.
Number two, do a bit of research.
It's not intuitive either. You think that you've just got it where you want it, and you check focus on that, and then you come out, and this is off. So then you've got to come back, and it's you really got to. And
you're also getting a little bit of light fall off at the far extremes. Yeah. So play with them, see what you get, and the most important thing, play. We love it when Canon comes up with some interesting products that are quite serious but have a fun element to them. And I love the fact that you mentioned I had to play, and that was really, really cool.
That was great.
Anyway, thanks very much for joining us, Quintin. That's it for this tech episode, part of the new tilt and shift lenses. It's great to see you. As usual, thanks for watching on a regular basis. If you would be so kind, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Let us know in the comments below what you think, what you like, and watch out for the next episode. Thanks very much.